If you are watching this, you have probably seen a bunch of different reviews on Paper Mario the Origami King already. So in my review, I hope to offer a viewpoint different than a lot of other reviews, which is that I have never played a Paper Mario game in my life. So if you haven't played any of the previous installments either, or if you're just looking for a different kind of perspective, my goal is to help you decide whether or not this game is worth picking up. What's up guys, my name is Ryan, aka Arpit. If you love the Switch as much as I do me a solid by liking this video, subscribing to the channel so that YouTube and others know that my content is worth watching. But without further ado, let's get into Paper Mario the Origami King. Now I'm not going to dive super deep into the story all that much because you probably already know the story from others at this point. But one thing I will say is that the story / dialogue is really what made me want to keep playing this game, and at the same time made me want to stop at some points. Now let me explain what I mean. The story is told in a way that will make you laugh out loud at some points. I legitimately was laughing out loud. And at other points, I was feeling real sadness because the story was honestly just got deep at times and I was kind of confused, like in a good way. Now while most of the story and dialogue is playful and witty, there were a few moments later in the game that were really deep and almost thought-provoking. This aspect is probably the biggest highlight for me with Paper Mario. The issue for me is that some of the dialogue, either with the main story or with the NPCs that you interact with, just drags and drags and drags. Now most of the time the NPCs that you can talk to don't have anything to offer with what they're saying, but the problem is that you can't speed up the text by mashing the A button unless you are talking to that same NPC for a second time. So any of your first interactions with anybody, you can't speed up the dialogue at all, it just kind of does its thing. Now this caused a lot of wasted time in my opinion, and so later in the game, I just stopped talking to a lot of the NPCs just so that I didn't have to read all the useless dialogue. Now along the way, you encounter different partners that join you on your journey, and it is honestly just so fun being able to travel with partners that in any other game would be your enemies. This allows for some great dialogue and storylines that really add a lot to this game. Now one complaint I have with the partners is that they are in battle with you, but they rarely do anything productive, which honestly just made me want to get rid of them rather than having them with me in those battles. Now when it comes to traversing the world, you definitely follow the story in a linear progression, just meaning that you have a specific route to progress through the story. Along the way, there are toads hiding around to discover, and like a lot of them, not bottomless holes to be repaired with confetti, collectible treasures to collect, and question blocks to hit. That's a lot of stuff, right? Now there's a good chance you don't discover all those things the first time through because there's just so many of them. But you can return to the areas at any point in the game, and the map in the menu will tell you what percentage of those different items you have already discovered, which is really helpful. This is a big aspect of the post-game for any completionists out there who like to 100% a game. One incentive with the toads specifically is a lot of the toads that you rescue or discover will open up different shops in kind of like the main hub in Toad Town. And so you can get access to better weapons, you can buy items, different accessories. So there's incentive definitely to finding some of these toads because they'll unlock some things for you that you can progress a little easier. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about is probably the most controversial aspect of the game, and that is the battle system. And honestly, I can see both sides on this one. Now the battle system is set up into two different types of battles. You have standard battles and boss battles. If you encounter an enemy while you are out walking, you are thrown into a standard battle. And in these battles, your goal is to line up enemies by turning rings. You have a limited amount of moves, so once those moves are up, the next part is choosing what enemies to take out with the allotted amount of moves you are given. Now if you're able to line up enemies perfectly, then you receive a damage boost to help take out those enemies a little easier. You can press the A button at the peak of your attacks to add additional points of damage as well. Now I will say at the beginning of the game, I was a little worried because the first battles are extremely easy and simple. Like the puzzles, the enemies, all super simple. However, the farther you get into the game, the puzzles and enemies get a lot harder, and there were plenty of times that I almost died just in these standard battles. There are also times later on that you can use powerful special moves which make the battles more interesting. Now, boss battles work a little differently in that you are still moving rings, but you need to position rings to direct Mario and put him into a position to be able to attack the boss. For example, one of the first boss battles requires you to position Mario behind the boss while at the same time landing on a special skill, which can be harder than it sounds. The times I died in this game were definitely during these boss battles because sometimes you just have to figure out what the heck you're supposed to do in the first place to be able to take him out the quickest, and in that process you may die. Now, dying isn't necessarily the worst in these situations because before you encounter any bosses or go into these battles, there are save blocks to save your game right before, so if you die you can just spawn and start that battle from the beginning. Now for me, and please don't hate me for saying this, but I did actually like the battles, at least as the game progressed. Like I said, those first battles they just feel like filler because they are so easy, and I found myself running away from enemies just in order to avoid these battles. But later on in the game, they really do ramp up in difficulty, both with the puzzle aspect and just the enemies themselves. So they're definitely a little more enjoyable later on in the game. Now, another highlight is that this game honestly just looks amazing in my opinion. Every area feels super new and different, and even in places like these mines or deserts that could be pretty bland, I do feel like they do a really good job of making the colors vibrant, and everything just honestly looks great. Another reason of wanting to progress through the game was honestly just to see what the next area would look like and who I would meet there. So, is this game worth picking up for you? Well, in my opinion, never having played a Paper Mario game before, I really did have a blast with this game, and I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. So I would definitely recommend it for anyone who loves the Mario franchise. While the game did drag on at some points with some of the dialogue, overall the story was really humorous and thought-provoking at the same time. While the battle system isn't perfect, for me it did enough later on in the game to make it really enjoyable, especially with the tougher boss battles. And overall, this game just looks and plays really great. One item I did want to mention for you guys was that I was able to pick this game up at Walmart on release day for $50. So if you don't want to pay a full $60 for the game, your local Walmart or sometimes Amazon in the future will have deals on these games for a little bit cheaper, even if it's just saving you $10. So if you don't want to spend a full $60 on the game, that might be something worth either waiting on or checking your local Walmart even now to see if they have that game for cheap. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you guys enjoyed the video, like this video, subscribe if you're new here to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.